Hey, it's Jules with Radio Now 100.9. Welcome to another episode of Coping with Quarantine, having a discussion on burnout and self-care. I know this pandemic, it's taken its toll on all of us, with some places across the country having to shut down again. We're all feeling the burnout. We need to remember to take the time to practice self-care. So I wanted to talk with my good friend, Dr. Kelsea Visalli. She's in Hartford. How you doing, Kelsea?
Hi, Jules. Hanging in there.
Aren't we all? I know it's been a few weeks since we've done one of these coping with quarantine sessions, but I'm glad we are finally connecting.
I'm glad to be back.
Yes. So let's get right into it. We're talking about burnout. What is it?
Yeah. So there's all kinds of different types of burnout. I think the most common would be work-related burnout. Some people are caregivers for others, so kind of a caregiving burnout. And then even empathy, you can kind of burn out on your ability to have empathy and show empathy for others. So when we're under chronic stress for a prolonged period of time, we start to feel physically, mentally, emotionally, socially exhausted. And that is when we know that we're starting to be burnt out.
Yes. And a lot of people are feeling burned out just from, their day-to-day tasks, which might be working from home. Are there symptoms of job burnout?
Yeah. So I think one of the first symptoms of job burnout is when you're putting in more effort than usual, but your productivity is actually the same or less. So it's like you're going. Maybe you're even putting in more hours, but then you're getting less done and you're not feeling satisfied. Other symptoms could be irritability, fatigue. When we're chronically fatigued, we're more likely to be irritable or kind of lashing out at things that wouldn't normally bother us. And we're pretty good at coping with stress for short periods of time, but when it becomes weeks, months, maybe even years, that's when our bodies start to have more of the physical symptoms and we start to realize we can't keep doing what we're doing.
So is there a difference of just being tired and being burned out?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of us probably can relate to being tired, and kind of when you're tired, you can refuel yourself eventually. You can go to sleep and you can kind of get that rest that you need. Maybe you're a little bit fatigued, but you don't necessarily feel hopeless about things. Whereas when we're burnt out, we start to feel drained, stuck. Some people start to report feeling hopeless, like they're stuck in a job that they're never going to be able to see any success in. And so when we get more into the kind of emotional, depressive side, that's when we might be more burnt out rather than just tired.
So what are some possible causes of job burnout?
So I think the most important one is when we don't know how to create boundaries or we don't know how to say no. So when somebody's kind of taking on all these new tasks, and maybe at first it's kind of like, ooh, fun, challenge accepted. But then later on, you're like, ooh, why did I do all of that? When we don't know how to create boundaries with self-care and work, we can start to feel resentful. A couple other examples would be if we're in a job we really don't get any enjoyment from. So the work feels kind of useless or like it's not going anywhere. And if you get stuck doing a lot of tasks that maybe aren't in your skill set, you know how sometimes people throw some extra stuff your way, and now you're doing like 2 jobs worth. I think at that, like you can do that for a week, but when that becomes weeks, months, people start to really get burnt out and not enjoy it.
And so it's just basically becomes like a juggling act, trying to balance everything. Besides, not getting the task completed day to day, what are the risks that come with job burnout?
I think a lot of people start to see their relationships suffer, especially if you're not at home as much, or when you are home, if you're feeling too tired to be attuned to conversations, or maybe you're feeling snappy. Some people see their blood pressure go up. Others might notice hopelessness feelings or feeling stuck. Anxiety can spike. Really, a lot of mental health difficulties can come, but I think the most common ones are the depressive feelings or just feeling very anxious and on edge.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure a lot of people are feeling like that right now. So what are some consequences of job burnout?
Yeah. So I think the longer we're feeling burnt out, the more likely that we're going to kind of have some of those consequences. So the consequences can be your mental health. They can be physical. They could be that your family starts to pull away from you. And that's not good, because when we're burnt out at work, we need our family the most. So I think the longer that we're kind of feeling a certain way and coming home in a certain mood, and some of us are working from home and kind of sharing spaces with each other. So that's a whole new conversation to navigate. If we're not having like open conversations with the people in our household on how to share that space, we can see those relationships get even more strained over time.
So can job burnout take its toll on, and we know it does mentally take a toll on our health, but can it physically?
Yeah. So I think our mental and physical health are very intertwined. It's a very holistic kind of perspective, but people actually might notice the physical symptoms first. So if you notice that you're having a lot of headaches, you want to sleep all the time, or you can't fall asleep even though you're tired, you might feel tense in your shoulders, your neck, your back. Those are some physical symptoms of anxiety and tension kind of in your body that you actually might notice before you start to notice that your mood shifts. So if you see that in family and friends, you might want to ask them like how it's going for them at work and if they need to like take a pause.
Yeah, I feel like that our body is very good at cueing us when something might be off or when we need a break.
Yeah.
And since we're in the middle of this pandemic, does this make us more vulnerable to illness, whether that be COVID-19 or another type of illness?
Sadly, the answer is yes. So when our immune systems are suffering, when we're really stressed for a long time, our cortisol levels spike. And what happens is we're actually more likely to get sick. So have you ever talked to someone who like at the end of a semester after final exams, they got really sick right after it was all over?
Yes.
It's like the body lets down, like the body can only take it for so long. So like finals is a really stressful time for a lot of students. So they are work. And then after they realize that their bodies are ill and kind of shut down, and that can happen whether it's COVID or another illness as well, if we're feeling chronically stressed.
Wow, that's crazy to think about, because I know that we're all just feeling a little overwhelmed and burdened right now. And the last thing we want to do is get sick with COVID, and then, our bodies might not be the best to fight right now. But how do we handle burnout?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways, and it's very personal to each person. But self-care is so important. And I think people, they roll their eyes because they're like, oh, don't talk to me about self-care again. But then when we actually talk about their self-care routine, they're not doing anything to take care of themselves. So I think the first thing is to notice it. Are you feeling tense, fatigued, any of the other things we talked about? Once you notice it, bring it to somebody you trust. Maybe it's your partner, maybe it's your best friend, maybe it's a coworker who you get along with really well and they're stressed too, and kind of map out a plan that you can maybe create some better boundaries with work, maybe develop a plan for how you're going to talk to your boss about taking sick day. Mental health days can be sick days. Mental health is just as much of, right? And a lot of people don't think that. So
we forget about that.
People forget about it. And I think some people have employers who encourage them, some people don't, but I'm a big advocate for if you need that mental health day to rest so you can kind of be more fueled for the rest of the week. And then finally, some people might need to seek mental health support and get some teletherapy on the computer, talk with a therapist, make a plan to figure out if there's something else going on beyond just the work burnout.
Definitely. So why does self-care exactly matter to me?
So self-care is so important. Coming from a therapist, if I don't take care of myself, I'm going to have like half of the energy to give to somebody else. And nobody else wants me to fill their cup up half with dirty water and little specks floating in it. People want me to help them kind of fill their cup up full. So if I go in feeling tired, irritable, all of those things, how are we going to show the people we care about that same level of what they need? I think another thing people commonly think is like, I don't have time for self-care. Okay. So where on your calendar might you be able to find 10 minutes to schedule in some sort of meditation or self-care activity? And we can talk a little bit more, but building up your self-care. So you don't just jump in with 5 hours of self-care. You might want to jump in with 10 minutes at first and kind of build from there.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You know, actually, that now that we're talking about it, I don't know what my self-care routine is. I mean, you know, maybe sit on the couch, watch a movie for a little bit, but what does self-care look like for everyone? Is it different?
I definitely think that everyone should do kind of what they enjoy. So if I enjoy Netflix, but somebody else enjoys reading a book, they should be their self-care is going to look different than mine, and that's totally normal. I think what we need to do is we need to train the brain to learn to sit still. We're in a society that really values busyness, and it almost is like this kind of pride thing of like, ooh, I'm busier than you. But that actually is really depleting over time. In the end, the person who kind of ran around like a chicken with their head cut off probably doesn't really do that much more than the person who's a little bit more relaxed and did their meditation in the morning. I don't know about you, but when I'm feeling really stressed, I'm very frantic and I actually get less done because I'm trying to do like 10 tasks at once rather than like, so you can relate.
I totally 100%. So self-care should not feel like work and cause more stress, right?
No, I think if it's starting to feel like stress, you either aren't really doing what you enjoy, or there could be something else going on where it's so hard for you to relax because of maybe an anxiety or something else that you might want to consider talking with a counselor to kind of drill out what's actually coming up. I also enjoy watching self-care routines on YouTube. There are millions. There's morning routines, night routines, pamper routines. There's probably like athletic routines. There's something for everybody. So if you don't know where to start, type in morning routine on YouTube and see what somebody else is doing and kind of make your own.
I never would have thought to do that.
I love doing that.
I'm going to go do that when I get home.
Yes.
So how much time a day or a week should we set aside for self-care?
Yeah. So I think it's important for everyone to figure out what works for them. But if you're doing 0 minutes a week, I'm going to say you need to start doing some sort of self-care. So maybe you want to start, for the person doing 0 minutes of self-care, maybe you want to start with 5 minutes a day in the morning where you read a book for 5 minutes and then you have your coffee. And then maybe the next day you want to extend it to 10 minutes. And maybe by the end of the week, you have a 30-minute kind of restful morning routine. Other people, they might be fine with doing 2 hours, 3 hours at night of rest. Netflix can be self-care, kinda. I know a lot of people will they'll be texting, they'll be doing homework, they'll be doing things while watching Netflix. I don't really consider that self-care. Yeah. You want to be unplugged and just doing the self-care. And I think that's the best way to just take a break from the hecticness of technology and society.
I'm the worst person at self-care. So how do I work this into my routine?
I will tell you every day to do it. No, I think
and remind me.
you could set an alarm actually. And there's actually apps that have alarms. So different meditation apps will remind you to meditate. I also tell people to put it into their schedule. You put all your other things into your planner. Yeah. I put my morning self-care in my passion planner, and that includes my morning workout. And it's just kind of a non-negotiable for me. And I think if you think about it as non-negotiable, you're much more likely to do it rather than, oh, I hope I have time to do that, because then you won't have time to do that. That makes sense.
Total sense. Can you get burned out of your self-care routine by doing the same thing over and over again?
I imagine if you create such a ritual that you can't deviate from it, maybe. If you start to feel burnt out from your self-care routine, please try to do something else. Please Google some self-care ideas and try something else on the list. This doesn't have to be a rigid kind of perfect part of your day. This is just some you time.
And I've seen some suggestions online, like making a self-care checklist, put a bunch of different options on a piece of paper or in a hat, draw something out, cross it off each day. Is that a good way to work in self-care?
I think that works for a lot of people. there's kind of this joy of being able to like cross something off a list.
Yes.
And I personally like to do that with like different workout plans. I'll put it somewhere central. So like the fridge, and after I'll cross it out. Other people, that might stress them out. Maybe they'll focus more on, ooh, I missed this day, and become consumed on that. So if it stresses you out, you don't have to do that. But if you get joy from being like, I did that, I'm so effective today, then definitely put something on your fridge and cross it off as you go.
I'm a list crosser off.
Me too.
So are there any resources we should know about to help us deal with burnout and maybe help us with self-care?
Definitely. So there, you can easily Google 100 self-care activities, and lists will pop up all over the place. You can highlight the ones that you like, ditch the ideas you don't like. You can do the hat idea, like you said, and pick one out of a hat. The YouTube morning and evening routines. Read a book on mindfulness, or download a mindfulness app like Headspace. And then I started reading this book. It's called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And it's all small stuff. And it's by a positive psychologist, which is just a type of psychology where we're focusing on like positivity and like kind of growing rather than like a pathology mindset. And there's a lot of really good tidbits in there about slowing down and taking time for yourself. So it's a quick read too. So I suggest that book.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Kelsea Visalli.
Thanks,
How
Jules.
can we connect with you?
At Dr. Kelsea Visalli on my Instagram. I post different posts throughout the week, and I'll put some ideas up on burnout for this week.
Love it. Thank you so much for joining us. If you missed any of our previous discussions on dealing with stress, intuitive eating, debunking therapy myths, you can find them at radionowindy.com. You can also text Jules, Jules, to 52140. And remember, you can listen to us live at radionowindy.com, download the Radio Now app, or just tell Alexa to open Radio Now 100.9.